The sun was sinking low behind the distant hills, casting long shadows across the dry, cracked earth. Ubuntu village had been scorched by months of drought, and every morning, Kofi, a poor farmer, walked the same dusty paths to tend his small patch of withered crops. He was a man of quiet strength, with calloused hands and a back bent from years of labor, yet a kind heart that the village often overlooked. His life was a constant struggle. The well had dried up, the debts piled higher than the roof of his humble hut, and the villagers whispered behind his back about his misfortunes. Friends were few, and the nights were colder than any warmth the sun could offer. Despite it all, Kofi never complained. He believed that survival meant hard work, patience, and a little faith. That evening, after tending to the last of his fields, he made his way back home, the forest path cutting through thick shadows and twisted trees. The forest had always felt like a living thing, quiet, yet holding secrets in its depths. As he walked, a faint, strangled cry reached his ears. At first, he thought it was a lost animal, perhaps a fox or a baby bird, but the sound was too human, too desperate. Kofi froze. His heart pounded as he scanned the darkening trees. The wind rustled the dry leaves, making him second-guess himself. The cry came again, soft, urgent, a sound that pierced the chill in his chest. He stepped cautiously toward it, every sense alert. The shadows seemed to twist around him, hiding both danger and hope. Finally, between two ancient trees, he found her. A tiny baby, wrapped in a cloth that shimmered faintly in the dying light, lay crying on the forest floor. The fabric was rich and beautiful, embroidered with delicate patterns, far beyond anything a poor family could afford. The baby's small hands flailed, and tears streaked her dusty cheeks. Fear gripped Kofi. Who could have left her here? What would the villagers say if they found out? He barely had enough to feed himself, yet he could not leave her alone in the forest. His chest tightened with a mixture of dread and compassion. The baby's cries tugged at something deep inside him, a helplessness he had never felt for himself but now felt for another soul. After a long pause, Kofi knelt beside her, whispering softly. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Slowly, carefully, he scooped her into his arms. Her warmth seeped into him, melting some of the fear, replacing it with a fragile hope. He tightened his worn shawl around them both and started back toward his hut, unaware that this small act of mercy would shape the course of his life, and the child's, in ways he could never imagine. The sun vanished behind the hills, leaving only the first stars to witness the beginning of a story neither Kofi nor the village would ever forget. Kofi carried the baby carefully, each step heavier than the last. The forest shadows had faded, but a new darkness waited at home, the whispers of the villagers. Word traveled faster than light in Ubuntu village. By the time he reached his small hut, curious eyes and suspicious murmurs had already begun to follow him. Some villagers avoided him entirely, while others lingered at a distance, voices low but sharp with judgment. "What is he carrying?" they muttered. "He will bring misfortune upon us all." Others whispered darker possibilities. "It is a cursed child, or it belongs to someone rich, he has stolen it." Fear and suspicion clung to Kofi as tightly as the baby in his arms. Kofi felt the weight of every glance, every accusation, pressing against him. He could have left the child in the forest, letting fate decide. It would have been easier. His life was already too heavy. His debts were rising, his crops failing, and sleep came only in brief, fitful bursts. He knew taking the baby meant adding more struggle, more nights spent worrying if he could feed another mouth, more days walking the fine line between survival and despair. Yet, as he looked down at the tiny face peeking from the swaddling cloth, he felt something stir deep inside him, a warmth he had almost forgotten. The child's eyes blinked slowly, trust already forming in the small gesture of holding on. In that fragile gaze, Kofi saw a chance at love, at purpose, at family. He could not abandon her. He whispered her name softly, feeling it in his heart before his lips spoke it aloud, Amma. It was simple, strong, a name that would grow with her. And with that name, a decision was made, not out of hope for reward, but out of the pure necessity of the heart. Life shifted immediately. Kofi began adjusting everything around this new responsibility. He rose earlier to fetch water, worked longer hours in the fields, and scavenged what little extra food he could find. He slept less, ate less, and carried a new, unspoken weight. Yet in every struggle, Amma's presence brought light. Each tiny giggle, each soft breath, reminded him why he chose love over fear. Evenings became their secret sanctuary. Kofi would rock her slowly, whispering stories he had never shared with anyone, tales of the land, the sun, and hope. Amma would curl against his chest, clutching his shirt with tiny fists, her warmth seeping into his tired bones. In those moments, the villagers' harsh words faded. The judgment, the rumors, and the fear of poverty melted away, leaving only the bond growing quietly between a man and the child he had chosen to protect. By the end of the first week, it was no longer just survival. It was family. Kofi had made his choice, against fear, against gossip, against the easy path, and in that choice, he found something richer than wealth, stronger than reputation, and more powerful than fear: love. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but Kofi's life never grew easier. The tiny hut that had once held only him now carried the weight of a child's needs. Every morning, he rose before dawn, scraping together water from the distant, half-dry well, tending to the cracked fields, and returning with whatever meager harvest the land would give. Amma clung to him at night, her small body warm against his, and he could feel her heartbeat against his chest, a fragile reminder of why he could not give up, no matter how impossible life seemed. Food was never enough. Kofi often went to bed hungry so that Amma could eat her fill. He wore the same patched tunic for years, boots scuffed and soles worn thin, yet he smiled when he saw Amma's bright eyes, curious and eager to explore the world, even if the world offered her little in return. Illness stalked them like a silent shadow. One particularly harsh dry season, Amma fell sick with a fever, her small body trembling in his arms. Kofi's heart twisted with fear. He had no doctor to turn to, only the scraps of medicine and old remedies he could find. He spent sleepless nights fanning her, whispering prayers into the quiet hut, willing her to survive. Despite hunger, poverty, and illness, Amma grew into a remarkable child. She was intelligent beyond her years, asking questions that sometimes left Kofi searching for answers he did not know. She noticed the patterns of the clouds, the way the sun painted gold on the cracked earth, the rhythm of the wind through the forest. Her mind was sharp, her heart gentle, and her spirit unbroken. Even as the villagers whispered about the poor farmer and his foundling child, she smiled at them with a kindness they could not understand. Yet, the villagers' looks and murmurs never stopped. Some avoided them outright, others spoke loudly enough for Amma to hear. "That child is not like us," they said. "They are different." Kofi felt the sting of every gaze, every whispered word, but he carried it quietly. He knew that the world could be cruel, but he refused to let it touch his spirit. In the safety of their hut, he painted a different story, one of love, courage, and hope. He never told Amma the truth of her origins. Not yet. He feared that the weight of the story, the fear, the danger, the unknown, would crush the innocence he worked so hard to protect. Instead, he told her of the forest, of the stars, of life's small miracles. He told her she was a gift, and she believed it, her laughter echoing against the cracked walls like music. As Amma grew, so did her questions. "Why don't we have much like the others?" she asked one afternoon, her small fingers tracing the worn patterns in the floor. "Why do people stare at me?" Kofi swallowed hard, feeling the tension knot in his chest. He wanted to tell her, to be honest, but he also wanted her to grow strong, to see the world not as cruel but as something she could shape with her own hands. "Because some people do not understand what is truly valuable," he said gently. "But we have each other, and that is enough." There was a beauty in the contrast of their lives. Poverty weighed heavily on them, yet love lifted them higher than wealth ever could. Each meal they shared, each story told, each quiet evening beneath the stars, built a bond stronger than any hardship. Kofi began to see Amma not just as a child he had rescued, but as a beacon of hope, a living proof that love could flourish even in the harshest soil. And though Amma's questions grew bolder, Kofi knew the answers would come when the time was right. For now, they survived together, hand in hand, hearts bound, proving that even in a world full of whispers and suspicion, love could be louder than fear. Years passed, and Amma grew into a young teenager. Her eyes, once wide with childlike wonder, now held a spark that seemed too bright for a Bantu village. She spoke with a confidence that drew attention, her questions sharp and thoughtful, often leaving Kofi momentarily speechless. She read books he could barely understand and solved problems with a cleverness that seemed almost unnatural for a village child raised in poverty. But it wasn't just her mind that stood out. Amma carried herself with a grace that made the villagers pause. When she helped at the market or greeted elders, there was a poise in her voice and movement that suggested refinement far beyond the dusty paths and simple huts of their village. Some whispered that she was different, though none could put their finger on why. Even her laughter had a rhythm, a melody that felt deliberate, like a song learned in a faraway home. One afternoon, while playing near the forest's edge, Emma spotted something half buried in the soil where Kofi had found her 20 years ago. With careful hands, she dug out a small object, a necklace, worn but intricately carved, bearing symbols neither she nor Kofi recognized. It glimmered faintly in the sunlight, a reminder of a past neither of them could yet explain. Kofi's stomach twisted at the sight. The necklace had been buried with her the night he had rescued her, and he had always feared it might reveal the truth someday. The discovery brought questions. Emma's curiosity surged. "Where did I come from, Kofi?" she asked one evening, holding the necklace close to her chest. Her voice was soft but insistent. Kofi felt a knot tighten in his chest. He had spent years shielding her from the truth, protecting her innocence, and now, the moment he had feared most was creeping closer. Strangers began appearing, too, travelers passing through the village who lingered longer than expected. Their gazes often lingered on Emma. Kofi noticed the way they watched her walk past, whispered to one another in unfamiliar languages, or asked questions about her that seemed oddly specific. Anxiety gnawed at him. Were they connected to her past? Were they searching for her? He found himself pacing at night, torn between two impossible choices. He wanted to tell her the truth, to prepare her for what might come. Yet, revealing too much now could leave her vulnerable, exposed to people whose intentions he could not know. Every time Emma fell asleep, the necklace resting on her pillow, he would stare at her face, a mixture of fear and love tightening his chest. How could he protect her from a world he barely understood himself? Despite his anxiety, he began noticing signs that Emma might already sense something. The way she studied strangers, the careful questions she asked about the outside world, the way she held herself when people treated her differently, all hints of awareness he could not ignore. He realized that her destiny might be larger than the small village they called home, and that the secrets he had kept might not remain hidden for much longer. Kofi clutched the necklace one night as he lay awake, thinking of the future. Every decision he had made, to raise her, to love her, to shield her, had been guided by one principle: protect her. But now, the world was moving closer, shadows of the past creeping into their lives. He could feel the weight of what was coming, a storm that would test every bond, every sacrifice, and every heartbeat of their quiet life together. Emma slept peacefully, unaware of the tension swirling in her father's heart. Yet even in sleep, her grip on the necklace was firm, a quiet signal that destiny was already calling, and that the secrets of the past would not remain buried forever. Kofi sat on the edge of the worn wooden bed, the fire flickering low in the corner of their hut. Emma's questions had grown sharper over the past weeks, each one piercing deeper than the last. "Why do people look at me differently?" she asked tonight, her voice quiet but steady. "Where did I come from? Why don't I know my family?" Kofi's heart ached, each question a reminder of the secret he carried, a secret he had vowed to protect with every breath. Memories of that night in the forest returned with vivid clarity, the moonlight through twisted branches, the sound of her tiny cries piercing the darkness, the fear that clutched his chest when he saw her alone, abandoned, shivering in the cold. He remembered the richness of the cloth she was wrapped in, the way her small fingers curled around nothing but air, desperate for warmth, for love. He had hidden so much from her to keep her safe, and now, the past he had buried so carefully threatened to surface. He feared losing her more than anything. Emma was the only family he had ever truly known. Every day he had worked, every sleepless night he had endured, every meager meal he had given up, it had all been for her. And yet, she was growing, becoming aware of a world larger than their small village. The thought of strangers claiming her, of taking her away to a life he could never provide, tightened a knot of dread in his chest. Emma sensed the tension but could not name it. She felt it in the way Kofi hesitated, the way his eyes darted when she asked questions, the way he fidgeted with his hands as if carrying an invisible weight. Sometimes, in quiet moments, she felt a strange disconnect, like a part of her was missing, like she belonged somewhere else, yet also needed to stay where love had kept her safe. The hut felt smaller that night, the shadows longer. Kofi almost spoke, almost told her everything, the truth of her birth, the danger she had escaped, the reason he had found her alone in the forest. His lips parted, the words trembling on the edge of his voice, but fear held him back. Would she understand? Would she resent him? Or worse, would the world take her away before he could prepare her? He ran a hand over his face, closing his eyes. Love warred with truth inside him, each heartbeat a drum of tension he could not escape. He wanted her to know, to understand the sacrifices he had made, but he also wanted her safe, untouched by the harshness that the truth might bring. He whispered to himself, a prayer to a God he wasn't sure was listening. Protect her, just a little longer. Let her stay here with me. Let me hold her a little longer. Amma stirred nearby, her eyes half-closed but alert. Kofi looked at her, breathing in the rhythm of her small, steady chest. The secret remained unspoken, the story untold, but in that moment, he made a quiet vow. He would protect her for as long as he could, even if it meant carrying the weight of fear and truth alone. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying a hint of change that neither of them could yet see. Inside, Kofi sat in silence, caught between love and truth, knowing the time would come when the choice could no longer be his alone. The morning air was unusually tense in a Bantu village. The birds' usual song seemed cautious, as if they, too, sensed the change. Smoke from cooking fires curled into the sky, but the villagers were distracted, their eyes fixed on the dusty road that cut through the heart of the settlement. Dust rose in the distance, and soon, the cause became clear. A convoy of unfamiliar vehicles rolled into the village. They were not like the traders or travelers who occasionally passed through. These were sleek, powerful, and clearly wealthy, their polished surfaces glinting in the sun. Curiosity rippled through the villagers, quickly giving way to whispers and apprehension. Who are they? Some asked. Others shook their heads, uneasy. I've never seen such clothes, such cars, in our village before. The strangers carried themselves with quiet authority, speaking in voices that demanded attention without raising them. Their eyes scanned the streets, sharp, calculating, and precise, as though they were searching for someone or something. Kofi felt a chill settle in his chest. The strangers were carrying a small object, a medallion on a chain, intricately carved, the same symbols he had seen on the necklace he had found with Amma years ago. His pulse quickened, and his mind raced. He had known this day might come, but no preparation could lessen the fear gnawing at him now. The strangers asked questions carefully at first, speaking to the village elders. 20 years ago, a child went missing, one said, voice firm yet controlled. A baby, wrapped in fine cloth, taken from a forest nearby. Have you seen anything unusual? Villagers exchanged uneasy glances. Some remembered faint whispers, old stories, or shadows in the night, but none dared speak directly. Kofi felt every second stretch painfully. Amma was nearby, tending to the small garden outside their hut, humming softly as if she had not noticed the approaching storm. But children notice more than adults realize. Amma's curiosity pulled her closer, and soon, fragments of conversation floated to her ears. The medallion, the forest, the missing girl. She froze, the pieces connecting like sparks igniting in her mind. Her heart pounded. Could it be her? Could the strangers know something about her past that Kofi had never revealed? Inside the hut, Kofi's thoughts swirled like a storm. Every instinct screamed at him to protect her, to keep her safe from the questions and the strangers who might claim her. Yet he knew that curiosity could not be contained forever. Amma was no longer a small child. She was bright, aware, and asking questions he could not ignore. He imagined the worst, officials or wealthy guardians taking her away, leaving him with nothing but memories and an empty hut. His chest tightened, and his hands trembled as he adjusted the necklace hidden under Amma's shirt, a small shield against the truth that hovered at the edge of exposure. The villagers' whispers grew louder as the strangers inquired about families, names, and sightings. Kofi could feel the tension mounting, not just in himself, but throughout the village. It was as if the very air had thickened, pressing down on them all, demanding answers that only he could give. Amma's thoughts raced. She had always sensed she was different, but now the evidence seemed undeniable. Her eyes fell on the necklace she wore, the one Kofi had given her to hold onto for safety, and a shiver ran down her spine. Questions she had once asked softly now screamed in her mind. Who am I? Why was I left? And why does my father look at me with both love and fear? The strangers moved closer to Kofi's hut, asking for directions and details about the forest where the child had been found. Kofi's heart pounded, each word they spoke like a hammer against his chest. He stepped forward, putting himself between Amma and the visitors, his voice calm but firm. You will not take her, he thought, the fear of losing her clawing at every fibre of his being. Yet even as he stood there, the tension shifted. Amma's awareness of her own history, the strange medallion, the hushed village conversations, all of it converged in her mind. She began to understand that the life she had known, the only home she had ever felt safe in, might not be all there was. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over the village. Kofi and Amma stood together, the necklace hidden but powerful, the strangers relentless but unaware of the bond they faced. For the first time in 20 years, the past had caught up with them, and the world outside their quiet life had arrived, carrying the truth on its polished wheels and sharp eyes. The village square had never felt so still. Even the wind seemed to pause as the strangers stepped forward, their eyes fixed on Amma. Kofi stood protectively beside her, hand gripping hers, as the leader of the group removed the medallion from around his neck. Its carvings matched exactly the one Amma had worn for years, a symbol of a world she had never known. "We have been searching for you for a long time," the stranger said, voice firm but gentle. "You are the only child of the Nkrumah family. 20 years ago, you were taken from danger. It was not by chance that you survived. Your father entrusted you to the forest, knowing someone kind-hearted would find you." Amma froze, the medallion heavy in her hands. Her mind spun, trying to absorb the words, the implications, the life she had never imagined. My parents," she whispered, disbelief lacing her voice. The life she had known, the days with Kofi, the nights in their small hut, the laughter, the love, suddenly felt fragile, like a dream she had lived for too long. Kofi's heart sank. He had expected this day might come, but the reality was sharper than fear itself. His arms itched to pull Amma close, to hold on to the child who had made him a father, who had filled the emptiness of his life. Yet the truth now loomed between them, a divide stronger than the distance of years. The stranger continued, recounting the story. Amma's family had been targeted in a dangerous dispute over inheritance and power. Betrayal and threats had forced them to hide the child, placing her in the forest to be found by someone trustworthy. The baby's survival had been a calculated risk, a gamble to protect her from enemies who would have stopped at nothing. Each word cut through Kofi like a blade, and he realized how fragile the life he had built around Amma had truly been. Amma looked at Kofi, her eyes wide, searching for answers in the only face she had ever known as home. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, voice trembling. "Why didn't you tell me who I really am?" Kofi's throat tightened. He wanted to explain, to tell her of the love that had shaped every day of her life, of the sleepless nights and sacrifices he had made. But he knew words could not erase the shock, could not compete with the weight of a past she had never seen. Villagers who had gathered around began whispering, their expressions shifting from curiosity to awe and fear. "So, she's from the Nkrumah family?" one asked. "No wonder she's always different." Suddenly, Amma was no longer just Kofi's child. She was someone the village had never truly understood. Their treatment changed in an instant, respect mixed with envy, fear mixed with admiration. Amma felt her identity crumble, the foundation of her life shaken. Her childhood, her home, her beloved Kofi, the man who had given her everything she had ever known, could now seem like a chapter from a story that no longer belonged to her. Tears filled her eyes, confusion and hurt battling with the love she had always felt for Kofi. Kofi, too, felt a sharp ache. The thought of losing Amma, even if only in the sense of her leaving to reclaim her heritage, was unbearable. Every memory, the first night he held her, the first steps, the first words, flashed through his mind. He had given her life, given her love, and now the world demanded that he relinquish what had been built with heart and devotion. The stranger stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on Amma's shoulder. "We can guide you," he said softly. "You have a place in your family, a life prepared for you." Amma's gaze shifted to Kofi, searching for permission, for understanding, for a sign that leaving did not mean losing everything she had loved. Kofi took a deep breath, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Amma," he said, "your past, it is yours. But my love, that will never change. No matter where you go, you will always be my child." A hush fell over the square. Amma's tears began to fall, but slowly, a realization came. Love was not bound by blood or circumstance alone. It could survive even the harshest revelations, even the greatest distances. The bond between her and Kofi, forged through years of care, sacrifice, and trust, could not be erased. And in that moment, amidst shock, tears, and whispers, Amma understood that her world had expanded, but it had not abandoned her. Her identity had been revealed, yes, but the love that had raised her, nurtured her, and protected her was unshakable, an anchor in the storm of her new life. The morning sun cast a golden haze over a Bantu village, but inside Kofi's small hut, the air was heavy, almost suffocating. Amma sat quietly on the wooden bench, her fingers tracing the edges of the medallion she had worn for years. The revelations of yesterday still echoed in her mind, a whirlwind of shock, confusion, and curiosity. She felt a deep gratitude toward Kofi, the man who had raised her, protected her, and given her a life full of warmth and love. Every meal, every bedtime story, every comforting hug, it had all been his gift. Yet, at the same time, a new curiosity pulled her heart. Who were her real parents? What had their lives been like? Why had she been taken from them? The wealthy strangers returned that morning, offering Amma a place with her family, a home with comforts and opportunities she had never known. "You deserve this," they said. "Your life was meant for more than what you have known. Come with us. We can guide you, protect you, and give you a future." Amma looked at Kofi. She saw the tension in his shoulders, the tight line of his mouth, the quiet tremor in his hands. He stood tall, yet something in him seemed to shrink under the weight of what he knew was coming. Every instinct in him screamed to hold her close, to beg her to stay, yet he understood that this was her destiny. Kofi cleared his throat, his voice steady but low. "Amma, whatever choice you make, know this: you have always been loved. You have always been my child." He swallowed hard, forcing a calm he did not feel. Behind the words, his heart ached with the pain of silent sacrifice, the grief of a father preparing to let go. Amma's eyes filled with tears as she stepped closer to him. She had seen the way he had stayed awake at night, the way he had struggled to provide for her, the way he had hidden his fears behind quiet strength. In that moment, the depth of his love became clear, an unspoken bond stronger than blood, forged in sacrifice, patience, and unwavering devotion. She reached out, taking his hand in hers. "Kofi, I don't know what to do," she whispered. Her voice wavered, torn between the life she had always known and the world suddenly opened to her. She wanted the comforts, the family, the answers, but leaving him behind seemed impossible. Kofi squeezed her hand gently. "It is not an easy choice," he said softly. "Life is full of paths we cannot control. But the heart knows where love truly resides." He stepped back, giving her space, yet every step felt like a knife twisting in his chest. The villagers watched quietly, understanding that this was more than a decision of wealth or status. It was a test of loyalty, love, and courage. Amma's gaze lingered on Kofi, and she realized something profound. The man who had raised her, protected her, and loved her without question had given her the greatest gift, not just life, but the freedom to choose, even if it meant choosing away from him. Tears streamed down Amma's cheeks as she finally embraced him tightly. "I will never forget you," she whispered. "You are my family, always." Kofi held her close, hiding his own tears, knowing that the bond between them could not be broken, no matter what the future held. In silence, they stood together, hearts intertwined in love and sacrifice, understanding that letting go was not the end, it was the ultimate act of devotion. Amma sat beneath the shade of the baobab tree outside Kofi's hut, the medallion glinting in the afternoon sun. Her heart felt like a storm, swirling with thoughts she could not untangle. On one side lay the life she had always known, the dusty paths of the village, the mornings of simple meals, the nights warmed by the fire and the quiet presence of Kofi. Every memory tugged at her heart. The first time he held her when she was just a baby, the way he had worked tirelessly to keep her fed, clothed, and safe, the countless nights he had sacrificed sleep to soothe her fears. On the other side was a life she had only just glimpsed, the wealth and comfort promised by her real family, opportunities she had never imagined, a world of safety and influence. It was a life that could erase every struggle she had faced, yet it felt distant, almost unreal compared to the warmth and love she had known. Kofi stood a few steps away, silent, his hands clasped behind his back. He did not urge her, did not hint at a preference. He had made a choice long ago. He would let her decide, even if it meant his own heart would shatter. His eyes, though calm, betrayed the depth of the pain he carried. Each heartbeat seemed to echo the question Amma wrestled with: where did she truly belong? Her thoughts drifted through the years they had shared. The nights of rain when they huddled under a leaky roof, sharing stories to keep spirits alive. The mornings when hunger gnawed at their bellies, yet Kofi smiled and said, "We have each other, and that is enough." Every hardship had been softened by his love, every fear eased by his presence. Could she leave that behind for a life of comfort she had never known? Amma's fingers clutched the medallion tightly, the symbol of the life waiting for her. She remembered the stranger's words, the promises of a home filled with safety and opportunity. She could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on her shoulders, the world waiting for her to step into it. And yet, Her gaze fell on Kofi, whose quiet strength had carried her through every storm. She saw the unspoken message in his eyes. Choose what makes your heart whole. Hours passed in silence. Emma rose, walking slowly through the small courtyard, her thoughts a battlefield of emotion. The village seemed to hold its breath with her, as if aware that this decision would change everything. She paused by the well, gazing into the clear water that reflected both her face and the life she had always known. Finally, she turned to Kofi, tears brimming, yet her voice steady. Kofi, I don't know which path I should take. I am torn between the life I was born into and the life you have given me. Her hand shook, not from fear, but from the weight of choice. Kofi took a deep breath, his voice gentle. Emma, wherever you go, know that my love will follow you. Your happiness is what matters. I raised you to be strong, to choose your path, even if it is not with me. The silence stretched, suspense lingering like a heavy fog. Emma closed her eyes, letting memories and emotions wash over her. Laughter, tears, hunger, warmth, protection, and unconditional love. The choice was hers, and she felt the world narrowing down to a single truth. Love had been her guide all these years, and now it would guide her decision. The village was quiet that evening, the sun dipping low behind the hills, casting long shadows across the dusty paths. Emma stood before Kofi, her hands trembling slightly, the medallion warm against her chest. The weight of the past weeks, the revelations, the offers, the heartache, pressed heavily on her, but a clarity had begun to bloom within her. Kofi, she said softly, her voice breaking but steady, I've thought about everything, all the love, all the moments we've shared. You gave me life, you gave me hope, you gave me a family when I had none. That is more than I could ever ask for. Kofi's eyes, filled with worry and longing, met hers. His chest ached with anticipation, fearing her next words might tear the last thread holding them together. I cannot forget my family, Emma continued, tears streaming down her cheeks. They gave me life, but you gave me home. I want you to know this. No matter what happens, I will never leave you. You are my family, in every way that matters. Kofi felt a wave of relief and quiet joy wash over him. He swallowed the lump in his throat, fighting to hold back tears. Emma, you have always been my child, he whispered. You always will be. The strangers nodded in understanding, realizing that love could not be forced by wealth or status. Emma's choice was hers, and in it, they saw the profound truth. Family was not only defined by blood, but by sacrifice, care, and unwavering devotion. The villagers gathered, whispering in awe and surprise. They had watched the drama unfold, expecting division or conflict, yet what they witnessed instead was the triumph of love over lineage, loyalty over wealth, and devotion over obligation. Emma's decision reshaped the very idea of family in their eyes, a lesson that would linger far longer than the day's events. Kofi placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder, feeling the bond they shared solidify in the quiet of the evening. His life, once marked by hardship, uncertainty, and loneliness, had been transformed, not by riches or status, but by the love of a child he had chosen to raise, and who had chosen him in return. Emma smiled through her tears, the sun's golden glow painting her face. Though the future held unknown challenges, the certainty of their bond made it bearable. Bloodlines could connect people, yes, but it was love, the deliberate, enduring love they had shared, that defined the family they had built together. As night fell over Ubuntu village, Kofi and Emma sat side by side outside their humble home. The world around them had shifted, but inside, nothing had changed. A home built on trust, a life shaped by sacrifice, and a love that would endure beyond all trials. In that moment, the definition of family had been rewritten, and it was stronger, deeper, and more beautiful than anyone could have imagined. Years had passed since the day Emma made her choice. The village of Ubuntu village had changed in many ways. New homes, new faces, and old whispers fading into memory, but some things remained eternal. The lessons of love, sacrifice, and family were among them. Emma, now grown, stood beneath the baobab tree where so many of her childhood days had unfolded. In her hands, she held the medallion that had first connected her to her roots, a symbol of her past, her present, and the man who had shaped her life. She closed her eyes and let the gentle wind brush her face, feeling the quiet strength of Kofi's presence in every memory. Though Kofi had grown older, his eyes still held the warmth and wisdom of a life dedicated to her. Emma approached him, bowing slightly in a gesture of deep respect. You gave me a life, she said softly. You taught me what love truly is. Everything I am, everything I have, I owe to you." Kofi's lips curved into a humble smile. "Amma, it was never about what I owed or deserved. It was about giving you the life you needed, the love you deserved. That is all a parent can hope for." The villagers, many of whom had once whispered and doubted, watched in awe. Some approached quietly, offering apologies for their earlier judgments, their faces reflecting shame and gratitude. They had seen the truth unfold, that a child's worth, a life's meaning, and the strength of family are defined not by wealth, status, or blood, but by the depth of love, the sacrifices endured, and the kindness shown in moments of hardship. Amma placed the medallion back around her neck, the small golden emblem glinting in the sunlight. She looked at Kofi and then at the forest on the village edge, remembering the night he had found her there, fragile and alone. That forest, once a place of fear and uncertainty, now felt sacred, a reminder of beginnings, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between them. "I will carry your lessons with me always," Amma whispered, her voice steady with reverence and love. "The world may change, but our story proves that love can shape destiny, more than birth, more than fortune. It is love that endures." Kofi placed a hand gently on her shoulder, a quiet understanding passing between them. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the village. The wind rustled through the trees, echoing the cries and laughter of a life saved, a family chosen, and a legacy written not in names or wealth, but in hearts. The final image lingered in the golden light, the forest where it all began, the medallion glinting softly, and the two figures standing together, a testament to love, sacrifice, and the enduring power of kindness.